Good morning, everyone. Um, Welcome, and really nice to see everyone who's here. And this is a kind of today's poems are um, um, especially important to me because I've actually had some direct connection with um, with each of these, and they've been a kind of and I'll explain that later on. I love these late small poems by Bishop. Um, I thought it was time. Enough time had gone by since our last Elizabeth Bishop poem, and especially love doing Elizabeth Bishop. And these poems have a kind of special meaning to me personally. Um, what I wrote on the top of the page was for very different reasons. She never lived to see either of them in print, although um, um, one of them she lived to see accepted by the New Yorker, and they kept it for over a year, and by that time she had died. So the little sonnet was a poem that she sent out and that the New Yorker took, but they just dragged their heels about publishing it, and it finally appeared in the New Yorker about 3 weeks after her death, and she was very annoyed. Not after her death, but that whole year of waiting. Um, so it's um, it's actually not her last published poem. She finished another poem called Pink Dog. It's quite different from this one. And the New Yorker rushed that into print because it was a carnival poem. So they rushed it into print in February in time for Carnival. But the other one, Breakfast Song, um, is not a poem um, that she ever submitted for print, and we can talk about that a little later. But I thought we might start with Sonnet and um, and see where that takes us. And we might think about in what way this is or isn't a sonnet and why she might have called it sonnet. Um, so let me read it. Sonnet. Caught, the bubble in the spirit level, a creature divided, and the compass needle wobbling and wavering, undecided. Freed, the broken thermometer's mercury running away, and the rainbow bird from the narrow bevel of the empty mirror, flying wherever it feels like, gay. Um, so let me just add as a postscript that Elizabeth Bishop told me that she was trying in this poem to restore the word gay to its original meaning. Uh, Needless to say, lots of people writing about this poem have disregarded that information. So, um, tell me what you think.
Well,
Any?
may I volunteer a source? She
Oh,
used that word two other
hi,
times.
Alfred. Yes,
Alfred,
indeed.
it's Alfred Korn.
Yes, hi.
She used it in a poem titled "A Cold Spring," which is about a visit she made to Jane Dewey in the state of Maryland. I'm sure you know the poem, Lloyd.
I do.
And she talks about the cow giving birth to a calf, and it suddenly gets up and feels inclined to be gay. And that poem is about the coming of erotic knowledge to her hostess, Jane Dewey. So I think that's evidence that she meant it in both senses. But there's also, suddenly I can't think of the title. There are two poems joined together that are rather surrealistic. And she talks about the beloved's green gay eyes. And green is, of course, a color
Mm.
associated with erotic experience. So I think we have to trust the text and not the poet this time.
Yeah, Nick. Yeah, thanks.
Well,
Thank
I
you.
noticed that all of the references in here are suddenly the things that we normally use to establish whether something is level, what the temperature of something is, and so forth. I'll go through them. Here is broken. It's a broken thermometer. The mercury is running away. The bubble in the spirit level, designed to see if something is absolutely level, uh, is now divided. The bubble can get split in two in a level, and then it's no longer reliable anymore. And the compass needle, normally, uh, again, stable, pointing to north or wherever, is now wobbling and wavering, undecided where it wants to point. It seems to be, and so, and even the narrow bevel from an empty mirror, normally the bevel in glass, so it splits the light. So everything that we use normally to establish what is where is now becoming unhinged. And I wondered, did she, when she wrote this, Lloyd, was she ill? Did she know that death uh, was approaching?
No, she had, well, I mean,
I didn't normally.
one of the back stories of this poem is really the story of her whole life. And she had multiple illnesses um, all her life, especially asthma, and had serious asthma attacks. But in fact, no, she had no premonition, no immediate premonition of her death, and she died actually very suddenly.
She died
Uh,
of a brain aneurysm. I
Aneurysm,
read.
and
Okay, okay, all right,
instantly
okay,
on her way to a party, on
all
her
right.
way to
Well,
a dinner party. Um, so let me go back. Oh, Martha,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. Well, you asked about the sonnet.
Yes, I was going to go back to that.
Can I talk
Good.
about that, or do you want to talk about that?
No, no, you.
Okay, well, it's an upside down sonnet in one sense.
Yeah.
The sestet is on top and the octave is on the bottom. If you look at the structure of the poem as opposed to the form, caught dash, freed dash, caught one image and another, freed one image and another. So it's very neatly upside down. But sort of against that, and I think this is one of the things I love about the poem.
Mm,
I mean, the central tension is between caught and freed, right?
yes.
So the sonnet, the structure that I just described is sort of caught and fixed, but the rhyme is all over the place. And it's sort of interesting. The only word that doesn't, in some very vague sense, rhyme in the poem is broken. Everything else has some vague kind of echo. Some of them are very clear, level and bevel, and divided, decided. gay and away. But wavering is a funny word in here, and I love the fact that it's that way. This is wonky, and I don't mean to suggest Elizabeth Bishop planned all of this, but the way of wavering gets picked up in the way of away and gay.
Mm-hmm.
And the ivering gets picked up all over the place in level and mercury and bird.
Running.
And yeah, all this, uh, and well, and all these earth.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So, so I love that. I love that on the one hand, it's very fixed, and on the other hand, it's very freed.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, she I she has a history of taking very strict rules and breaking them. And I guess her most famous poem now is One Art, in which is in one of the strictest forms imaginable of Villanelle, but she obeys some of the rules but changes some of the rules also, and she's very good at that. Very, very, very skillful. But you make oh, Jennifer, yeah, hi.
I just wanted to amplify Martha's point and to say, uh, again, another example of being caught and freed, that the lines are basically two stress lines, but the pattern of stressed and unstressed syllables in the lines plays all over the place, back and forth. So again, you have a sense that um, uh, well, that it's caught and not, and especially a kind of wobbling uh,
Right.
sense
Wobbling and
there.
wavering, yeah. Yeah.
And the one other uh, Bishop poem that I'd put in the mix, um, and I'm thinking about the rainbow bird image in
Hmm.
octave, is the rainbow, rainbow, rainbow that comes at the end of her poem, The Fish, when she says, and I let the fish go. And so that kind of spreading rainbow effect here, I guess, a sort of prismatic something, is something that elsewhere she's associated with a kind of freedom and letting go.
Yeah. Yes, very very good point. That kind of oh, but Alfred, yeah.
Well, one non-poetic source for that image is the blurb she gave for Robert Lowell's Life Studies. I don't have the book with me right there. Maybe you have it, Lloyd. She talks about her grandfather's Bible and looking at it with a looking glass, I mean, a magnifying glass,
Magnifying glass,
and
yeah.
that a prismatic rainbow appears in that magnifying glass. So I think that's one thing. And I'll inject another point about the thermometer. It has the word meter in it. And this is a poem
Oh.
about freedom and breaking constraints. And I think the meter is broken or irregular. And also, interestingly enough, the Mercury is the god of erections.
I have a feeling she wasn't thinking about that. But I don't pretend to know what was on her mind. Um, but I for so many years, I mean, Jennifer, you're I think you're so right about the reference back to rainbow, rainbow, rainbow in the fish. For so many years, it was her most famous line. And I think I think she is playing on that in this poem. And um, this issue has sort of has kind of come up a little bit already in our discussion, but um, there's an interesting omission in this poem. There is no I, capital I. And I think it's one of her most autobiographical poems. Does that make sense to anyone? Anyone? So, well, Bonnie, yeah.
I thought about that rainbow bird flying and that the broken rainbow, the thermometer is in her hand and she is making that fly. It is a wand that she's literally playing with the light off the broken thermometer.
Mm.
So that's where I thought the uh, person came in, the I, or might.
I have to think about that. Yeah. Yeah, interesting. Jay, excuse me, Jay.
Yes, and I think to maybe also to that point, I don't know if this is, Lloyd, there've been other mentions of illusions. I've always felt this poem had a commonality with those, what I think was those early kind of metaphysical poems of in her first book. And of course, the weed ends, I grow but to divide your heart again. And so a creature divided is such a strong theme, particularly in those early poems. And it feels like here too, an important word has come up, swum back up from her past.
Yeah. Yeah. Gentleman of Shalott, another divided creature.
Lloyd, you
Alfred.
could,
Oh, sorry. Who?
yes, just Meredith. Hi.
Yes, hi,
You,
Meredith.
you
And then
could
Alfred.
read this. You could read this as an allegory of self-definition,
Mhm.
with the empty mirror at the end, meaning perhaps that she has been regarding herself and is now free from that in some way. But it does definitely seem autobiographical.
Mhm. Alfred, thank you. Yes.
There's an anecdote that James Merrill tells about his visit to Bishop in Brazil, and they went for a ride, and there was a rainbow overhead, and they drove under it. And she said that in Brazil, the proverb is if you drive under a rainbow, you change sex. So again, I think this is a poem dealing with gay orientation and the freedom finally that she has to express it, although indirectly. And of course, we all know that the rainbow flag has been adopted by the gay movement.
Mhm. Um,
And Robin, I think, was gonna
oh,
had her
oh,
hand up.
oh, good. Robin?
Yeah, I agree with
Hi.
Meredith. Hi. I agree with Meredith that it's a kind of reflection of self-definition and a kind of bursting out at the end of, okay, I am gay. Uh uh it seems to me that the struggle against wanting to be in women's anthologies, the refusal to align herself with the LGBT movement throughout her life, the it seems to me um, lifelong uh, shame, perhaps. Uh, I'm not sure if shame is the word, but something akin to it. Um, it seems that some of the poems struggle against more successfully than others. So I kind of align myself with Meredith here that the move towards self-definition, as much as she told you, Lloyd, that wasn't what she intended. Um,
Well,
I
but
could,
she was certainly aware of it, of
right,
that being an
right,
issue.
right.
Um,
Okay.
um, any thoughts about the empty mirror? the rainbow bird from the narrow bevel of the empty mirror, flying wherever it feels like. Gay.
Just a quick thought here.
Sure.
Maybe her ongoing and lifelong doubts and insecurities about her sexuality were compounded every time she looked in a mirror. And perhaps now the mirror is empty.
What does now mean? I mean, you say now,
Yes.
and I think I agree with you.
I'm
But
taking
what are the implications of that? Now the mirror is empty.
I think it goes back to the word freed, and that's how I experience it.
What makes her free in this in the octave of this poem, in these two images, in these two last images, the broken thermometer and the empty mirror?
For me, the Mercury running away means that perhaps one is no longer trying to establish a certain kind of definition of self. The Mercury is now running away, and you don't need to do that anymore. And I'm not looking in the mirror anymore because I don't need to.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that makes that makes sense to me. I have a slightly different take on that, and it sort of goes back to was it Nick? Your original comments about her foreseeing her own death.
Yes, that was my comment.
And I think that's what's happening she was not dying when she wrote this poem. But I do think this is a poem, in my mind, it's a poem about foreseeing freedom only in death. So that the thermometer is broken. Oh, Denise, I see you have your
And
hand up.
Stephen.
I'm sorry?
And Stephen's been waiting too.
Oh, great. Good. So the broken thermometer is useless now. It's something that's useless. And the mirror is now empty. There's nothing in the mirror except this illusory rainbow flying wherever it feels like. Denise, yeah.
Yeah, there's two Jimmys here, but I was wondering if I'm the only one that sees this as a possible suicide poem where she is considering suicide.
Well,
With being caught and then being freed.
And being freed. Yeah.
Caught in the world and then thinking what's going to happen if I'm freed from that.
Yeah.
Just a possibility that I was thinking of.
Yeah. I hadn't thought of it quite in those terms, but I wouldn't violently disagree with you either. But Denise.
Thank you. Even when the thermometer's broken, there is the freedom, it releases the mercury inside. Right. And, for those of us who grew up before the days when we were protected from the toxicity of mercury, it was so fun, even enchanting, to try to push, try to capture the mercury, try to squish it and make it stop. But no matter how hard you try, the mercury kept running around the bathroom floor, almost giggling at us. So I don't see the damaged part of this. And what's interesting to me as a sidebar is in the spirit level, the thermometer and the mirror, they're all made of glass, which signifies something that I'll just put aside for now, because I'm not sure what it is. But the mercury's, free as the rainbow bird, and the empty mirror doesn't seem menacing at all to me. It's not broken, but it's not functioning as a mirror exactly. What's going on is the little rainbow, the prismatic rainbow caused by the bevel. And, it's another one of these tee-hee, I'm free, even more than the mercury. And the first one, the spirit level, and that's not functioning correctly either. So there's this progression from confused to released to completely liberated. And the way that maps onto sexuality is obvious on one level, but what it keeps me thinking about is last night I went to see Blue Moon. And there's this long discussion between Lawrence Hart and a bartender about sexuality and sexual identification. And Hart describes himself as omnisexual, which is not a term I'd ever heard before, but was really striking as, as a transcendent form that I guess aspires to cover every form or option of sexuality, which took my breath away. And that's it.
Stephen, you had your hand up.
This is just a slight adjustment on things that other people have said when they've talked about the brokenness of these devices. All of these are devices about assessing the world, assessing and determining the world, and they're all faulty in some way. And I would have thought it's maybe not as strong as suicide. I thought of it in like a Buddhist sense, that maybe it's a poem about surrender. And by surrender, I mean that final deep acceptance for what is, not for the way the world judges it, or the devices that are meant to assess and tell you what reality is, that maybe there's a new reality that's finally accepted. And in Buddhism, the empty mirror really is where the personal I self is gone. And now you're the universal self. You're part of what is in the world. And there's a tremendous sense of freedom like it, which would echo what other people said about the Mercury too. That maybe that's that deep sense of her knowing who she is and not being subject to the way the world was going to assess her.
Thank you. Thank you. Alfred.
Well, I concur with what the gentleman just said. I think it's a poem that looks on death as a freeing, and there's a long tradition of that in English language poetry. Think of Shakespeare's "Fear no more the heat of the sun, or the furious winter's rages," or I've forgotten the number of the sonnet that ends, "Death once dead, there's no more dying then," or John Donne, "Death, thou shalt die." So there is a tradition in the West and also in the East of death as a liberation. And also Denise is noting that the word objects of glass figure in the poem, in the thermometer and the mirror. Maybe most of you know that the glass mirror was invented in Venice in the 16th century, and the process involved putting a coating of mercury on the back of the glass and then blacking on top of that. But I also think this poem, Bishop had many important literary friendships. I think it reflects her friendship with James Merrill, particularly toward the end of his life when he was writing the Ouija board trilogy, which involves a mirror, which in the end is broken. And so he's freed from this task of representing the other world, which is the world of death. And that world of death in his trilogy is represented as embodying a kind of freedom that we poor creatures on earth don't have.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Thank you. Let's go back to the first part of the poem. And
Lloyd, I'm sorry, before you go back, Gina just
Oh,
raised her hand. Maybe she could add to
okay,
that.
sure.
And then, thank you. Sorry.
I'm in a new place this week. How am I sounding?
You sound great.
Sound great.
I'm in my new apartment.
Oh,
So
congratulations.
thank you. I have been listening and am very much convinced by what is being said. I'm left with a question of how this works within the materiality of the poem. I'm trying to understand precisely what she's caught by. Yeah. I understand that there is a general high flying act that she, being the persona, or whatever we want to say, or Bishop herself, there's a high flying act. There's the frangibility of all of these objects, which may be the frangibility of self and experience. The compass is glass, the mirror, the various objects. But I'm just not understanding the caught. I have some thoughts, but none of my thoughts is working, within the actuality of the poem. So I wanted to ask that question.
Good. Well, I'm glad you want to go back to the beginning of the poem. There you are. Hi. Couple of things about the sestet at the beginning, the two images in the sestet. And the easier one is the compass needle and the way that's, I think that's very autobiographical. That, her books are called North and South, Questions of Travel, and Geography 3. Geography is a consistent image in her poems, and her trips north and south, living in Brazil for so many years. Selena, I thought I saw Selena there for a moment, but
I am here, Lloyd.
there you are. Yes,
Yeah, so
nice to
many.
see you.
Yes.
Are you in Brazil now?
No, I'm in England.
Oh, there. But her living in Key West and living in New York and living in Nova Scotia. So the compass needle, interesting to see that towards the end of her life, she regarded the compass needle as wobbling and wavering because she was sort of all over the place. And then, Catherine, you're hi, and your hand is up.
And Mary Elise has had her hand up way before I did.
Oh,
Oh, Mary Elise, just make sure that I can see that.
Oh, yeah, I have this. I always forget where the raising hand button is. It's
me
not,
too.
it's not obvious, right?
I'm
Which
sorry.
It's under react.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. And it says recognize hand gestures or play chime for raised hands. And I thought those sound kind of obnoxious. So I don't think I want to try those. Okay, I'll fiddle with it in another
No worries.
But
Thank you, Catherine.
But yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I just wanted to pick up on a little bit of actually what the last, I think, three people have mentioned. I can't really address the question of caught, but going back to Stephen's and James's points, one of the things that strikes me in this poem, and I just think it's a tremendous poem.
Yeah.
It's just stunning. But one of the things that I notice about it is that is it large bad picture? There's a poem where Bishop says visions is too strong a word or too serious a
Yeah,
word.
in poem.
It's a poem. Okay,
Poem
thank
about the
you.
little painting.
A
Yeah.
little painting, yes. Okay, yes. So I was thinking about that and her kind of traditional humility and avoidance of at least overt grand statements.
Mhm.
And I thought that the fact that it is a spirit level, although I think most people don't bother to call it that anymore now that alcohol isn't used, right? And in fact, it's already Mercury when Bishop's writing this poem. And I remember the little balls too and playing with them, oh my God, on the kitchen table. Anyway, it's unusual for Bishop to write overtly about spiritual matters.
Mm.
Right? And I love that she has, I mean, the spirit is part of what's caught, right? And then part of what's released and the rainbow bird and this beautiful thing that happens. So I
Can you,
guess,
let me just, can you explain in case anyone doesn't know what a spirit level is?
oh, okay. So it's what we normally just call a level, right? And it measures whether the line is level or
Balance.
straight. Balance, right,
Yeah.
right. So
Oh,
originally,
Joyce, thank you.
oh, that's great. Originally, it was some form of alcohol
Right.
that was the liquid was an alcohol, which is why it was originally called a spirit level. And of course, alcohol, okay, maybe that plays a role somewhere in here as well. But I love the way she's turned this really kind of a grand experience, a grand, I don't know, translation of what could be a spiritual experience into these minute parts of a measuring device. Um, I don't know. So I could understand the thought of, the body, if the body is broken, maybe the spirit is released. I see those elements there. But I just wanted to say how wonderful it is that she captures this magnificent freedom in such a both a tiny sonnet and such tiny objects.
Yeah. Thank you. Catherine.
I like grammar. And when I read this aloud a couple of times, I kept saying, I'm caught, I'm freed, because they're perfect. They're past completed actions until we get to running away, and that's ongoing. And I like the difference of those. And I think, at least for me, one of the things, whether you're 4 turning 5 or 90 turning 95, people assess who they are then at that moment. And it seemed to me she was saying, okay, I was caught by this stuff. I'm free by the, nope, I'm flying away. And that I am who I am is what somebody else has already said. And I had just that feeling that, and it wasn't that she had decided on any of the heavy questions, just those were going to be with her. She was who she was. Freeing, flying, gone.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm.
Nick.
Well, I just have a couple of non-poetic, well, maybe not. Well, first one is there is a person in these poems that has not been mentioned yet, and that's Alice Bethfussel, her lover, who was about 30 some years younger than she is. And as I read the New Yorker article about this all, she was always worried that she couldn't maintain her attractiveness to this much, much younger woman. And that was a level of uncertainty. And Alice was loyal, apparently, for the rest of Elizabeth's life. That's one thing. And I'd be interested in any comments on that. The
Well,
other is simply, go ahead.
We'll talk about that when we talk about the other poem.
Okay. The other is simply a carpenter point, which is non-poetic, but a spirit. I have at least 4 spirit levels. One is 4 feet long. The other is about 6 inches long, and consist of a cylinder of glass with an air bubble in the middle of it, and it is used to make sure that whatever you're working on, like a windowsill or any other piece of carpentry, is in fact level. And they're still full of alcohol. So today, there's nothing obscure or abstract or than that simple fact. I just wanted to make that factual point.
Thank you. Martha.
A tiny follow-up to what Catherine said about the poem. One of the things that interests me is there is no sentence in this poem. These are sentence fragments. There's the tension between, as Catherine said, the past and present participles, but no verb, no subject verb, which leaves us, it's one of the things that makes the poem to me feel wonderfully indeterminate, so that I can read it. Yes, this can be about death, but it can be about a lot of other things too. And so I'm sort of left balancing. And I love that about the poem.
Good word.
Let me tell you something. Maybe this is the point to tell you my particular connection with this poem. Oh, Selena, go ahead, please.
Yeah. No, I would love if you could comment on the punctuation, because I know you are an expert on that.
Oh.
And I feel very much that while you're aging, you are more aware of the freedom that oneself can acquire, being released from your past and the constraints of life. So in a way, this freedom comes also with age and more stability in her life, in a way, in the late 70s.
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah. Well, the punctuation, of course, she didn't live to be 70. Jennifer, do you have a response to that?
Well, I was only going to follow up to say that the strict parallel that we see at the beginning, caught the bubble, freed the broken, it persists through the poem. So, the semicolon at the end of the third line, that the structure there is quite clear and containing, and then from the narrow bevel of the empty mirror, those lines are sort of inserted or extended in the octave to round it out, and the contrast between the wobbling in the one and the running in the other is set up by those calibrations. And also, maybe I would just say one tiny adjustment to thinking about what's caught in the sestet is really both of those things, the wobbling and wavering of the compass needle, or the way the bubble works in a spirit level. Those are about a kind of lovely fine tuning that you get because of the constraint and the structure, and it's kind of a trying to zero in on something that it's not caught like a metronome or caught like something more mechanical. And I would just make that distinction between the two halves. It might be a very small thing, but I kind of love that in using the spirit level and in using a compass. And that might be perverse. It might be reading both of those objects against what she's emphasizing in them. But again, it's not just here's something caught and here's something broken and free. Here's something caught that we use for careful calibrations that are responsive and alert. And then here is just just the rainbow running away in contrast to that. But even the prismatic effect of a rainbow is set up by something precise and distinct. So
thank you. Thank you, Alfred.
Well, I want to concur with Martha about the multivalent aspect of this poem. It can be interpreted in many ways. It has many different facets, prismatic facets. And to note also, as she did, that it's not a complete sentence. There's no main verb, only participles. And there's a famous poem that also does that. We know that Bishop was devoted to 17th century English poetry. George Herbert's poem Prayer, that's again a series of sentence fragments. There's no main verb.
Right.
Then about the multivalent thing, I mentioned before that Mercury was the god of erections, which brings in the erotic, but Mercury is also the psychopomp in Greco-Roman mythology. He conducts the spirits of the dead down to the underworld. And I think that we've said that the theme of death is there, but one aspect about death is that we leave a legacy. And I think the poem looks forward to her legacy when she's no longer in the mirror. And offers evidence a title of one of Seamus Heaney's later books, which was The Spirit Level.
Spirit Level. Yeah. Well, thank you. I have two things. I wanted to try to maybe expand a little on my answer to Selena's question about the punctuation, and which Jennifer really clarified, but that I would just add that in a way, one of the interesting things about the upside down nature of this sonnet, that is beginning with the 6-line section and ending with the 8-line section, really heightens the sense of that sense of running away and the rainbow bird and this, in a way, the sense of freedom in those last 8 lines. If it were 8 lines followed by 6 lines, that ending with that sense of liberation would really be more constricted. So it seems to me kind of brilliant that it's one of the things that she does by turning the traditional form upside down. But I wanted to tell you a little story, which is partly, I don't know, bibliographical in a way. So my particular connection to this poem, my personal connection to this poem, is that it was the poem I was asked to read at Bishop's memorial, which I was very honored to do. And I had seen the poem, and I had really, in fact, I wanted to publish it because I was editing an issue of a magazine at that time, and Bishop said, "Well, I'd love to have you do it, but I have a contract with the New Yorker because they have first refusal rights. So they have to look at the poem before anyone else could use it." And they were delaying and delaying and delaying, and then they finally took the poem, but it was too late. So it was a poem that I had this connection to. And then shortly before the memorial for Bishop, no one could find a copy of the poem. I mean, all of the people close to Bishop had copies of it, but no one could put their hands on it. And so I was asked to contact the New Yorker because they had a copy of it. And then they could either send it to me or they could just dictate it to me. So I reached Howard Moss, the poetry editor of the New Yorker, and he said, "Oh, I wanted to read that poem," but he hadn't been invited to do so. So he didn't come.
Snark.
And but then he dictated the poem to me, and it was the poem I remembered seeing, and it was the poem that Frank Bedart remembered seeing, and that Alice Methvessel remembered seeing, and we were all fine with that. Then 3 weeks after Bishop died, the New Yorker finally published the poem.
Then they changed the public.
And they published it with a different third line. So if you look up Elizabeth Bishop's sonnet in the New Yorker, it will read, "Caught the bubble in the spirit level, contrarily guided."
Good God.
And those of us who were, interested and surprised, to say the least, by this change, contacted Howard Moss again. And Howard Moss said, "Well, we told Elizabeth that we were publishing the poem, and she made a change in the third line." And nobody had known about this change. And when the new edition of the collected poems was in the works, there was a meeting between Robert Giroux at Farrar, Straus and Giroux, and Frank Bedart and Alice Methvessel and me. And we had to decide what to do about that third line. And we unanimously agreed that this was the version we knew. None of us knew anything about Elizabeth Bishop changing the line, and we thought this was the better line, the more personal line, certainly the more moving line. The other line had a kind of cleverness about it, contrarily guided. You tip the spirit level one way, but the bubble goes the other way. It made sense, but it just seemed kind of fussy. And anyway, we voted to have the version that we actually had in Elizabeth Bishop's typescript, in her own typescript. We voted to have that as the authoritative version of the poem. But it was kind of a shocking moment to see a different version of that line in the New Yorker, and that's what you get when you look at the New Yorker.
Didn't you talk once a long time ago about you're holding off publishing your poems because the publisher wanted to do the New Yorker's punctuation and you wanted to do hers?
Well, yeah. This is about a different poem. It was about
obviously, yeah.
Yeah, it was about one art. And in every draft of the poem, it's a poem that famously we have all of Elizabeth's drafts. I think there are 14 or 15 of them. And in every one of those versions, the first line of the poem, "The art of losing isn't hard to master," ends with a colon. And when it appears in the New Yorker, when the New Yorker finally published it, it's a semicolon. And when I was putting her collected poems together for the Library of America, I thought, well, this is an opportunity to go back to her original version. But she had agreed to let the New Yorker publish it with a semicolon. And then she republished it that way in her book. So the editors at the Library of America said, well, she had the last word, and her last word, or non-word, but her last view of the poem was with the semicolon, and that we can't just change it. So I think the version with the colon is actually stronger. You might disagree, but that's that version. That's that story. But we have a half an hour left, and I'd like to devote that. I'd like to devote that time to Breakfast Song, and maybe I'll start with my own story about that, and some of you know this already. I was visiting Elizabeth Bishop when she was in the hospital. She had broken her shoulder, and at one point, she was taken out of the room to get an X-ray or something like that. This was at the infirmary at Harvard. And I was sitting alone in her hospital room without anything to read, and her notebook was on her bed table. And I opened it. And on the top page was this poem. And I copied it. I tore a page out of the notebook. And I copied the poem because I had to have a copy of it. I wasn't going to do anything with it. I just needed to have it. I thought it was an extraordinary poem, and in some ways pure Elizabeth Bishop, and in some ways different from anything else I had ever seen. And I thought maybe certainly one of her 3 best love poems. And frank and open in a way that she wasn't all that often in her poems. And I just had to have it. And I didn't tell anyone. I didn't show it to anyone. I didn't do anything with it except that I knew it. And I kept it for 20 years. And when I heard that Farrar Straus was about to do a new collected poems, I thought this poem had to be in it. And I sent it to Robert Giroux, and I sent it to Alice Methfessel, Bishop's last longtime partner, and about whom whom this poem is about. And one of the reasons that I felt I couldn't show it to anyone was because it was a love poem to someone I actually knew, and that it just seemed weird to say, oh, I have this love poem that Elizabeth wrote to you. Have you ever seen it? And um, and it was a kind of, I thought after 20 years I could do this. And Robert Giroux's response was, this is a great poem. I'm going to get the New Yorker to publish it. And Alice Methvessel said, oh, that poem. So it got published in the New Yorker. Alice was fine with that. And then it is now in all of the collected Bishop poems that were published after that time. It's the only copy of the poem, of the complete poem, that we have so far. The notebook seems never to have turned up. There is there's a draft of a different poem in the Vassar College Library on one side of a page, and the first two lines of this poem on the other side of a page with a different title. And that's the only thing we have in Bishop's own handwriting. And you might be amused to know that in the last Farrar, Straus, and Giroux version of Elizabeth Bishop's complete poems, there's a section at the end of her unpublished poems with a photocopy of her own handwritten or typescript version of the poem. And the rule for that volume was that the editor was not going to include any unpublished poems that were not in Bishop's own typescript or handwriting. But several of us insisted that this poem had to be in that volume. And so the photocopy of the draft of that poem is actually in my handwriting. And it's a copy of the page that I copied down in Bishop's hospital room. So I obviously feel very close to this poem, but I think it's extraordinary, and I'm just glad it exists.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Alfred? Yeah.
Well, the poem mentions saving grace. The beloved is described that way, and you are the saving grace of this poem.
Oh, thank you.
I think it's rather similar to the previous poem because it's about love and death, which
Yes.
as a concept, is very ancient, that to make love is to die and so forth. And this is another example of that.
You were quoting Shakespeare before, and I see a kind of parallel between this poem and Sonnet 73, that time of year thou mayest in me behold. And it's a poem about an older lover saying to the younger lover that isn't it amazing that I'm so much older than you and I'm going to die before you do, and yet you still love me? And isn't that marvelous? This
The
got me.
contrary is Marvell's to his coy mistress, where he's trying to seduce her and he tells her, you better have fun now because you're going to end up in the grave. It's a fine and private place, but none, I say, do there embrace.
Yeah, that's right. Breakfast song. My love, my saving grace, your eyes are awfully blue. I kiss your funny face, your coffee-flavored mouth. Last night I slept with you. Today I love you so. How can I bear to go as soon I must, I know, to bed with ugly death in that cold, filthy place, to sleep there without you, without the easy breath and night-long, limb-long warmth I've grown accustomed to. Nobody wants to die. Tell me it is a lie. But no, I know it's true. It's just the common case. There's nothing one can do. My love, my saving grace, your eyes are awfully blue, early and instant blue.
That was beautiful, Lloyd.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I was thinking last night that these are the only two Elizabeth Bishop poems that I can actually recite by heart. I think I could do one art, but I need to think about it. These these two poems I can just recite. But I don't know, Robin, you look like you are mulling something over.
I loved hearing you recite it or read it, whatever you did. It was beautiful. And I love the joy and the frankness that comes through in her language here. It's such a celebration, which is so unusual for her. Such a frank celebration of the erotic and the passionate and the emotional. It's nice to think of her in this way.
Yeah. I kiss your funny face, your coffee-flavored mouth. It's very erotic.
Yeah.
And the night-long, limb-long warmth I've grown accustomed to. It's what do you make of the part? So we have, I think it's 14 lines, and then there's a dash at the beginning of a line, which is a characteristic Bishop gesture. Nobody wants to die. Tell me it is a lie, but no, I know it's true. How do you read that?
I think Jennifer.
Jennifer, yes, I'm sorry.
Well, it pivots, the poem pivots there on the die, lie, rhyme. The rest, as if it were a kind of a different adaptation of a sonnet, going from 14 lines and then launching into a second one. But after the die and lie, all the rhymes we've got in the last 6 lines of the poem are there in the first part of the poem too. Die and lie are the only ones that are just by themselves. Otherwise, mouth, breath, death, warmth, grace, face, place, case, and a whole lot of blue, you, true, do, blue, blue, which reminds me of Gail's poem, The Studio, that always brings the blue back.
Yes.
But anyway,
yeah, I love that poem.
So I think, we could put it in a family, it's like a cousin to a sonnet or a step sonnet or something like that. And that turn in the middle makes the pivot, something like that.
Mary, thank you. Mary?
Yeah, I was also going to say, well, it's kind of the obvious, but it's where, I mean, after this, I guess 14 lines, right, of just gorgeous description of intimacy. And I'm also just always blown away by the night long, limb long warmth. It's just so damned beautiful. Um, but then we pull back that dash. She pulls out of the address, the intimacy of the poem into a universal. And that seems to be, that it's it's more characteristic of her to say nobody would want something rather than this incredible description of her experience with her lover, and that what all those gorgeous things she's grown accustomed to. So it kind of pulls us back and into a universal perspective. But then I love that she comes back to it and repeats the first two lines again. Yeah, that's not very helpful, but I just love it so much.
No, Bill, thank you. I love it too. Bill. What we need you unmuted.
Sorry about that.
There
yes.
You go.
It's not entirely clear, is it? What she wants to be told is a lie, whether it's the fact that we die or the fact that no one can come to terms with dying. So there's a certain ambiguity there, and she seems as much troubled by our inability to adjust to that fact as by the fact itself.
I was hoping and expecting you to land on that.
Yes, it's the kind of thing that does strike me, yes.
And I agree with you, and that nobody wants to die. I mean, part of what that line is saying is, sometimes I do. Sometimes I want to die. But then there is that ambiguity. Tell me it is a lie, but no, I know it's true. Well, is it that nobody wants to die, or is it that we die? That's universally true. Catherine.
I heard this with that break at Die and Lie. Suddenly she's talking, instead of talking about her love for, I think it's what every older lover in some ways says to the younger person. Mm-hmm. No, nobody wants to die. I know it's true. Stop. I'm older than you are. I'm going to die before you. It's true. And then she goes back to, but I love you.
Yeah, right.
Sort of straightforwardly that she's sort of shaking her lover, saying, really, stop telling me this is a lie. It's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's rather obvious, but anyway.
No, not so obvious. Any further thoughts?
I think Alfred, did you want to say anything?
Oh, I missed.
Well, I'm afraid I'm hogging the mic today. Excuse it, please.
No, please. You're such a welcome guest, and I'm so glad you're here. And
you say that she's more direct here, but she's pretty direct in an earlier poem that was published in her lifetime called Shampoo, which is about washing her girlfriend's hair. And she notes that there are streaks of gray in it, and that's a prefiguration of death. There's also the poem written in Key West called Waking Up Together. So she did visit the topic of erotic love between women before this, maybe not quite so directly, but she still doesn't say you're a woman. We have to deduce that. And that was her famous reticence. She didn't want to be, totally clear about the beloved, but once you're clued in, you know what she's talking about. And sorry, I think one source for the poem is a little lyric by Gertrude Stein that says,
Ooh.
it's just 4 lines. My name is Rose, my eyes are blue. My name is Rose, who are you? I am Rose and I sing, and when I sing, I'm everything. So I think that's one source of the poem, and it's kind of a clue because Gertrude Stein's gender and sexuality are very well known. So I just throw that out.
Okay, well, two things. The Key West poem was not a poem Bishop published in her lifetime.
No.
And The Shampoo was a poem that was rejected by the New Yorker. And
because they knew what it was about.
because they knew what it was about.
Mhm.
So she was, I mean, I agree, those are, and then those 4 love poems that she wrote in sort of the middle of her career are really pretty obscure. They're rather difficult poems to just read and follow. And of course, I put a lot of time, into just thinking about why this poem disappeared. And that when I saw it for the first time, I had this fear that just went through me like a lightning bolt that I might never see this poem again. Because she was certainly capable of not publishing it. And she was also capable of destroying it. And I couldn't bear that. I mean, literally I really just couldn't bear it.
Was what I said before, Lloyd, the author of Goodnight Gracie was the saving grace of this poem. We thank you.
Well, thank you.
Lloyd, we have a lot of
Gina.
people who Gina.
I see Gina. And
thank you, Alfred, for I guess I've been wanting and thinking about situating these poems by Bishop in the poetry of American women. I, unlike many people here, don't know Bishop's work so very well, but know the work of Marianne Moore intimately by virtue of my undergraduate institution. I fed it like mother's milk, and was taught it when I was taught Bishop. Bishop as a poet who is deeply influenced by Moore. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And, yes. And so I've taken both poems, right? The poem that we're looking at now, which, although it's full of artifice, for me is so unaffected. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so moves me so deeply because of that. And, her ability to do that, as well as to do the kind of syntactical and grammatical kind of hijinks that she does in the other poem. And of course, those are both abilities of Moore's.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And there are even some lines of Moore's love poems that I feel are finding their way as influence, and in diction in this poem, as I did in the poem that we looked at earlier. So I just wanted to.
No, thank you. Yeah. Bill. Thanks, Gina.
Yeah, I just wanted to canvass your opinion on early and instant. Early attracts a lot of attention because I think it's the only reversed foot at the start of a line. I think all of the other lines are pretty well perfect iambic trimeters. So
Tell me it is a lie.
Oh yes, you're right.
And
Yes,
nobody wants to die.
Nobody wants to die. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it looks okay. So I'm actually wrong. It isn't quite as distinct in metrical terms as I thought. But anyway, can I ask people what they make of early and instant?
Well, Meredith, do you want to try to answer that, or and then
Just
say what you wanted to
it
say?
struck me as funny because it to me, I think of instant coffee, early
Sure.
instant coffee and the coffee flavored mouth.
Coffee flavored
I did
mouth.
have a question, maybe we have time next, which is about my saving grace. It's such a religious phrase, but it's also a commonplace phrase. And the lover can't save her from death. So what does she, how is she using my saving grace is my question.
Anyone want to? I mean,
well,
her love, her she tried to commit suicide when she broke up with Alice Methvessel, and then Alice Methvessel went back to Bishop. So she is saying, I mean, that was after this poem, but she is saying that her relationship with Alice was keeping her alive. And I think she, that was literally true about that relationship. And I think you're right about this is called Breakfast Song. So it's early and instant blue. And that instant, I think, is just astonishing. And that it's, of course, there's that joke about instant coffee, but that how alive that is to just be in love with someone when they open their eyes. And especially if those eyes are awfully blue. Anyone else?
The fact that awfully is used in its merely demotic sense. I mean, you could imagine a poem where awfully is used in such a way as to activate the literal meanings of the phrase, but its appearing alongside my saving grace might hint at the poem's reluctance to impute religious meaning to saving grace. It's almost as if the tendency to use awfully in its demotic manner carries over to saving grace and deprives it of its specialized meaning.
Yeah, it's very colloquial, very demotic. Alfred.
Tell me it's a lie. Howard Bloom described poetry as lies against time, meaning that time and change lead us inevitably to death, and that the arts, not just poetry, arts in general, are our way, our wish to stave off the fact of death. And I think that operates in this poem. And so she's sort of saying to the poem, tell me that I'm not going to die. But Bishop, being a realist, has to counter that. And we always get the record of her chain of thoughts and associations. So she goes against it. But it doesn't stay with death at the end. It returns to her love. And so maybe that's the lie against time that will carry her posthumously to readers and a kind of immortality.
I think that's a good note to end on. And thank you for coming today. I hope you come back sometime again. And thank you to everyone. it's just it's great to see you all. And Martha, did you?
I just, Catherine, the other Catherine, or another Catherine, had her hand up.
Oh,
Thank you.
I can't always see what's
Oh,
on
I'm
the
sorry. I
screen.
hadn't figured out the technology either. I just
Oh,
wanted to add.
just yell.
Okay, I'm yelling. Well, actually, about the lines, nobody wants to die, tell me it is a lie. Is the poignance of that is that it's a child's cry. Tell, putting your hands over your ears. No, that can't be true. But no, with the rhyming, no, I know it's true. It's just the common case. It is the plight man was born for.
Yeah.
It is Margaret you mourn for. So
Yeah.
that there's a child's outburst to me.
That's good. I like that.
Thank you, Martha.
Thank you, Martha. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Marita, for Oh, Stephen, you one last comment. We have to let Marita go. You're on mute.
And then Robin will make a quick comment, and then we'll say goodbye.
Okay, if that's okay with you, that's okay with me. Stephen,
An off-kilter comment, but it was especially true when you read the poem, Lloyd, your rendition of the poem. A lot of the poem in the middle to the end part sounds like the Hoagie Carmichael song, "The Nearness of You."
Oh.
There's rhythmical reflections of that too. And I once had the thought, I wonder if that was the song playing on the radio when you're thinking about making your love song, to your lover in this way too. The endless process of all of us, if we're lucky, having somebody that we want to, declare our love to when we wake for another day. But I just love the idea of thinking that maybe some of the rhythms snuck into the poem.
I have to think about that. It's a wonderful song. It's one of my favorite songs. Robin.
Where does Bishop say awful but cheerful?
It's the last line of the bite.
It's the end of the bite. Yeah. And it's what's on her gravestone. So there that brings us full circle, I think.
Wow.
Thank you for asking. That's great. Yeah, awful but cheerful is her other really great place of using that word. Marita, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Lloyd. And really, I think you sharing these poems and your perspective on them was really special today. So thank you so much. And thanks everyone for being here.
Yes, thank you.